My name is Dr. Salim Javed. I am an associate professor at the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at Lingyas Lalita Devi Institute of Management and Sciences, affiliated with Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University. We have been talking about how and what are the changes that has shaped the very nature of filmmaking industry in India and around the world. We have been talking about how cinema itself, the craft itself started, who were the important people whose contribution has given it a shape as we know it today. We have talked about Lumiere brothers, we have talked about George Méliès, and we have talked about Edwin S. Potter. Now, in the early 1900, especially around 1908. Now, if you remember when I was talking about A Trip to the Moon, which was released in 1902, and this film, the Great Train Robbery, which was released in 1903. These two films, one made by George Méliès and another made by Edwin S. Potter, these films actually opened, ways of economy, of experimentation, of making it a structural industry, and people could realize that, okay, this novelty has got potential. Now, as you know that the first screening was done in 1895, the first paid screening was done in 1895 by Lumiere brothers, and how George Méliès actually was part of that screening. He wanted to buy Lumiere brothers camera, they refused. He started experimenting, bought a new camera, and then he started making film. And in 1902 he came up with A Trip to the Moon, a fantasy, a new genre of fantasy started. People could see magic happening right in front of their eyes on the screen. And then Edwin S. Potter, who was a projectionist in America, saw the work of George Méliès and he got inspired, and The Life of an American Fireman, and then later The Great Train Robbery. One is responsible, A Trip to the Moon is responsible to make cinema, it took cinema towards the fantasy, and this film, The Great Train Robbery and The Life of an American Fireman, could actually see the development in the grammar, in the formation, So these two films are actually a great example when we talk about the early history of cinema in the world. Obviously, one was made in France and the other was made in America. Now, as you can see on your screen, it is written that in the early 1900s, specifically around 1908, the American film industry started to take on its modern form. Whereas I am saying that in 1903, two major films, The Life of an American Fireman and The Great Train Robbery was released, and here on screen I am saying around 1908. There is a gap. Why I am saying it, I'll definitely tell you. So it says that by as early as 1900, especially around 1908, the American film industry started to take on its modern form. Following the release of film A Trip to the Moon, which was released in 1902, the traditional method of motion picture exhibition has placed an economic burden on theatre owners. Now, this is something which is like contrasting itself. A film which is like known for generating revenue, and then on the other hand I am saying that motion picture distribution had placed an economic burden on film owners, on film theatre owners. There is a paradox happening, and I am talking about a film which was released in 1902. I am asking you to say that by 1908 American film industry took modern shape, a modern form, and distribution has placed an economic burden on theatre owners. Now, these are 4 or 5 different statements clubbed together in a slide, and let's understand this entire lecture is about how the form as we know it of cinema today came into existence. What are the incident, some good, some bad, what was the way of functioning of the early cinema. So when I'm talking, the period that I have picked up for this lecture is around 1903 4 to around 1912, or up to the beginning of the First World War. Now they were required to purchase. Now how films, films which were produced by the producers, they were becoming a burden for the exhibitors. Now please understand, if I am talking about the year 1902, 1903, the identity of distributor per se is non-existent, So what exhibitors are, theater owners. What exhibitors were doing, they were buying films directly from the producers, and they were required to purchase, as it says, that they were required to purchase film prints outright. I'll be explaining what is outright, from producers at a cost of 10 to 12 cent per foot, which was disadvantageous for exhibitors. Now when I say that they were buying film on the basis of how long the film is per foot, 10 to 12 cent per foot. Now what does it mean? Like suppose 10 to 12% per foot, and the film is 1000 feet long, So do the calculation. So everybody was paying a decent amount, or rather towards the towards a huge amount per film to the producer to be shown in their theater. And they need to, there was no renting thing happening, they were required to purchase films. So if I have got 1000 exhibitors, or say just for example, suppose if I have got 500 exhibitors, so these exhibitors will be buying 500 prints from the producer, who will be charging per foot as per the rate, 10 to 12 cent per foot from these exhibitors on each print of the film. Now do the maths and just make sure that if I am making a film, that I will be discussing what was the budget of each film during the time that I am talking about, it was from $100 to $200. And when you, just for the sake of calculation, per foot 10 to 12 cent, 500 prints, one film which is made in, let's take the mean in $150, and you are, and it's a 1000 feet long film, and I am making 500 prints. 500 is a low number that I am saying. You are making a 500 prints of the same film, selling it at a specific rate and giving that film to 500 exhibitors. So do the calculation, and everybody has got the same print of the same film, and that is being shown everywhere. But when you do the maths and everything, the advantage in this particular situation is that they were purchasing the film. But obviously it was a economical burden for them, because they supposed to buy films on a weekly basis, because people were extremely excited about this novelty, and after a trip to the moon, which proved to be a which proved to be not only economical success in France, but in US also. There were a lot of copying of the film that was happening, and because of which actually George Méliès has to open an office in US to just catch hold of who were actually doing the copyright violation. Obviously by this time there was no such concept called copyright violation existing in the public domain. Now in 1903, this is a very interesting fact. A lot of people talk about Lumiere brothers, some people talk about Sklendolavisky brothers, but today I will tell you about one more brothers, and trust me, they have done a wonderful job. In 1903, visionary entrepreneurs Harry J. and Herbert Miles launched a groundbreaking film exchange in San Francisco. They skillfully connected producers with exhibitors, leasing, not purchasing, leasing film prints at just 25% of the purchase price. Now, this is something which actually gave an impetus to the filmmaking movement, or which is like considered as one of the most important strokes towards the growth of filmmaking industry as we know it today. So, Harry J. and Herbert Miles were two brothers from San Francisco who actually started, leasing film prints, but paying to producer, leasing it to the exhibitors, and somewhere in between they were just charging 25% of the purchase price. So, suppose if I have taken a film in suppose say $70, so or $75 or $100 for that matter. So, I am leasing it out on $125, and obviously I am leasing it out, they are not purchasing it, please understand this. Now, this innovative approach not only revolutionized the distribution process, but also led to immediate and remarkable success. Now, think of today's time that you are not buying an AC, you are only paying the rent, and the AC is installed in your room or in your house, and as the season goes off you ask the person to take it off, and you have not invested money in buying it, in maintaining it, you are only paying rent for the season as long as the season is, and you are happily using AC in your house. So, exactly on the same formula, this sort of an exchange film leasing out services was started by Harry J. and Herbert Miles in Francisco in 1903. Now, what happened because of this service which was started by Harry J. and Herbert Miles? Now, think of the exhibitors, they are not buying films outright. Outright means that now if I have like the way we buy clothes, we pay them the full amount, and now the shirt or t-shirt or kurta or the kurti belongs to us. So, you are buying that product outright from the seller. In this case there were producers. So, exhibitors were buying films outright from the producers. Now, there is a new development because of Harry J. and Herbert Miles, that now they were actually leasing films print. They were leasing film prints. So, this way of film distribution actually helped not only the producer, but also the exhibitors. The producer established a dependable and well structured customer, because now they do not have to deal. Now, the producer, they are not dealing with 500 exhibitors, they are dealing with this film leasing service, and they are dealing with one person, which is easy to deal with as compared to 500 people. And now these people are actually helping producers to distribute their films, films that are produced. That is why this name, this middleman is known as distributor or distributors, capitalize on this opportunity by renting the same film print multiple times to various exhibitors. Now, understand that what is going on. One producer, 500 exhibitors, everybody is coming to producer, give me your film. Producer is keeping 500 prints and giving one print to each exhibitor, okay, and obviously there is a charge and the film belongs to them, to the exhibitors. Now from producer and exhibitor there is a middleman called distributor. Now the distributor is saying, you know, don't have to buy film, you know, take the film on a lease from me, and you don't have to pay upfront, you know, obviously you are not purchasing it, so you don't have to pay upfront. So I will, you know, lease you out for a certain period. This is the charge that I am charging for leasing out, okay. You can lease out as many films as you want, and when the time expires, return that film to me and I can, you know, lease it to someone. Now you will say, Salim sir, how that is possible, like everybody is leasing out and then obviously everybody has seen the film. Obviously in one city everybody has seen the film. Now there are multiple cities, there are, you know, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. So now this distributor will route out old films to different cities, to different tiers. So they will be earning from the same film for a period of time, and exhibitors will be getting new film each time. Now this strategy not only enabled exhibitors who once relied on exchanging film to significantly cut their operating costs, but also empowered them to diversify their programming with minimum risk. This innovative approach transformed the film distribution landscape, fostering a more dynamic and profitable environment for all the parties involved. Now think it in terms of exhibitors. They have got more options. They were able to offer variety of films because now they don't own the product, there is only a leasing, you know, process. So they were able to offer variety of films to their customer, you know, and the operating cost, you know, was low obviously, and there was a minimum risk. Now because this sort of a service is in place, so it actually provided a kind of you know, moral boost up for the producers, and it actually facilitated the exhibitors. Trust me, you know, when I was preparing this lecture, and this lecture is prepared from a very old book actually, and when I saw the third or fourth version of that film, you know, most of this information was missing from there. So like the information that I am talking about is available in 4, 5, 6 pages in the narrative of films, the book that I have consulted. And now when I see the modern version of that film, it is hardly in 1 or 2 paragraph, or hardly, you know, 500 or 600 words. So sometime, you know, it happens, and it is not that what is the purpose of knowing all these things. I have always said it in my class, and this is what I tell my students: unless you do not know what problems, what developments, and you are not aware of the history, chances are that you know, you are not aware of the future also. So when you know that how distribution started, what was the need, you know, so when you know the need, it is all the route or the way or the process is always justified. Now so when how the distribution started, that is the title of this lecture. So this is how the distribution, I mean, I am not saying that it's a perfect process, you know, there were many problems, that's why there were changes, and the modern shape of distribution, good, bad or ugly, whatever it is. So there have been changes even in this process also. So filmmaking has gone through a process, distribution has gone through a process, and exhibition has gone through a tremendous change in recent years. So now, so this innovative distribution system created by Miles brothers, Harry J. and Herbert Miles, rapidly gained traction, fundamentally transforming the film industry. So, like Lumiere brothers or like Sklendolavisky brothers, remember about Miles brothers. So, these are the brothers, you know, Harry J and Herbert Miles, who are responsible for introducing distribution as a concept that we know it today. Now, what happened that now earlier, like A Trip to the Moon or The Great Train Robbery or The Life of an American Fireman, all these films, you know, now as you can see on your screen, this surge in popularity coincided with the widespread emergence of permanent theatres known as Nickelodeons across the nation, alongside a remarkable expansion of film production companies. As the number of permanent theatres surged, the appetite for more films intensified. Now, please understand what is happening. On one hand, you have distribution system in place, exhibitors are happy, producers are also happy, people are also happy. Why producer is happy? Now he doesn't have to deal with 500 people. Why exhibitor is happy? Now they don't have to go to individual producers for individual films and buy it from them. And why audience is happy? Because they have more variety, you know. So, three important components: producer, exhibitor and the people. Now, what is happening that these exhibitors, you know, because there was a kind of a convenience available for them, so there was a widespread emergence of permanent theatre. Now, what it means to have the emergence of permanent theatre. Now, this is very interesting that if I open an amusement park, you know, so I will be doing activities to promote that people come in a specific season for a specific activity in my amusement park. So, when you actually make permanent theatres, it shows your commitment, it shows that you are serious about the business, and it assures you that you are not running away from the business and you are investing in the business back. So, these permanent theatres, earlier known as Nickelodeon because nickel was paid to watch the film across the nation alongside a remarkable expansion of film production company. Now, when you say permanent theatres and when you say, you know, film expansion of film production company. Now, this expansion of film production company, you know, compelling directors and people involved in the filmmaking process to churn out more films because there was, you know, a demand for new film each week from people across these permanent and, you know, impermanent or moving theaters, you know. So, these production companies were, you know, ready to expand because they were buyers, they were people, there was money. So, things were going really well, and, you know, because movies were made, people were interested, service distribution service was available, variety of films were made. So, churning out the film became the priority, you know, because the appetite for more films intensified. So, you know, when you know there is a market, obviously you you flood the market with more product, and that is what exactly happening with American film industry at this point of time. Now, this escalating demand drove producer to ramp up their film production like never before. Now, when I was talking about Edwin S. Potter, when I was talking about George Millier in the lecture, I got emotional when he said that laugh my friend laugh, you know, towards the end of the lecture, you know, that that pain, that dissatisfaction, that the feeling of not being acknowledged, the feeling of thrown out, the feeling of left out, nobody is to be blamed, but the process became such that even the producers were forced to ramp up, because there was, this was an open new field where people were craving for more and more, and they were not bothered about whether they are watching a high standard product, or like a trip to the moon, or an as innovative product like the American Fireman or the Great Train Robbery. They were there to watch. Like it is like reel. You're not bothered about what is coming there, but as long as you scroll, there is a variety. Please understand, when you know history, you know your modern behavior, you can predict market or future. That is what exactly the obsession that you have today with reels is actually the time that I am talking about was happening with the film. They were not bothered about whether these films have some standard, or whether these films are of some intellect or not, whether these have some innovative strategy or some innovative way or not. They wanted films. Good, bad, ugly, but they wanted films, exactly like what we are doing with reels. It doesn't matter whether they are morally corrupting us, it doesn't matter whether we are seeing, whether we can see them with our parents or not, whether we can see them with our young brothers and sisters or not, or whether we can see with them with our kids or not, but they are reels. So they were films. People were mad about those films, so remarkably, the three key elements that of this emerging industry: permanent theatre, high production output, and growing audience interest, fueled each other's growth in a powerful economic cycle. Now, please understand that it's all boils down to whether the system is making money or not. Yes, the system was making huge money, huge profit in everybody, in all the parties, be that producer, distributor, exhibitor, people, everybody was having a good time. Thank you very much.